Welcome back. Chapter 3, Humility and Divine Guidance. The third component of the aspect of humility is divine guidance, the act of seeking direction in your life by asking God to reveal it to you. But a boat set adrift needs no guidance. It is not going anywhere in particular, so any direction will do. In life, it is better to pick a direction, any direction, engage your willpower, and then go for it. If it turns out to be the wrong direction, inner guidance will kick in and by degrees set you on a better course. But drifting will get you nowhere except by accident, and that's no way to live your life. God is less spiritual than people make him out to be. He's much more interested in sinners than he is in saints. Not because he likes sin, but because he likes those who push against the boundaries and take risks. He likes people who are in action in their lives, because it is these people who know what they want. It is easier to help people get somewhere if they know where they want to go. Those who don't have a vision are usually sitting on their heart's desire, afraid to let it out, lest it disrupt their normal lives. There's no virtue in that, none at all. So if you want God's help, position yourself in such a way that you need it like your body needs air. God can't help but join you in your endeavors, but you have to know what you want and be willing to stick your neck out to get it. Until one is committed, there is hesitancy, the chance to draw back, always ineffectiveness. Whatever you can do or dream you can, begin it. Boldness has genius, power, and magic in it. And that's a quote. Divine guidance and desire. The fourth component in the aspect of humility is desire. The very act of asking for divine guidance implies that we want something. So desire is built into the system. It's what makes having goals possible. Desire is essential to the process of being guided. Desire is the motive force that propels us towards our goal, the very thing that causes us to ask for guidance in the first place. But you cannot want something for which you have no concept. Someone once said, "The eyes are the scouts of the heart." First, the mind decides what it will value. Then it uses the reports of the eyes to determine what it will go after. Where your treasure is, there will your heart be also. You cannot want a thing unless you have the idea that it's valuable. Why is this important? Unless you want something, you cannot receive guidance on how to get it. It's like the woman who was taken into an alien spaceship. She asked where its occupants had come from. She was shown a map of the galaxy and asked to point to the Earth, which she could not do. The space beings replied, "If you don't know where you are, what does it matter where we are from?" Smart alecky aliens, right? Usually when we ask ourselves, "What do I want?" the question seems impossible to answer. So much rides on getting it right. And perhaps there's a bit of reluctance to ask for something for ourselves, which can feel a little selfish. So there is a technique, a way to circumvent the anxiety and the guilt. Instead of asking, "What do I want?" ask, "What do I love?" Guilt and anxiety cannot compete with your heart's desire. What do you love? What, when you think about it, causes you to light up? What would you do if time and money were no object? Whatever that is, it's really non-negotiable. It is what you have to do. Of all the magnets you carry around with you in your heart, this is the one that has the most pull. It will cause the rocks and stones themselves to yell out the guidance you need. What do you love? Until you know this, guidance will be hard to come by. But when you're honest with yourself and true to your first love, the entire universe will be at your service. What should you desire? No one can tell you what you should or should not want. It is simply none of their business. In fact, you cannot pick and choose your own desires either. What you want lies deeper than your intellect, and it will not be denied. Usually we are afraid of our desires because there are prohibitions against those urges we carry around within us. The urges of sex and pleasure, of wanting to stay home and watch television, to raid the refrigerator, to talk trash about the boss, anything and everything that goes against the hallowed Protestant work ethic stamped on our foreheads at birth. To give in to these is to shirk our responsibilities, to slide into a dissolute life, to waste the opportunity that life is. But here is what we don't understand. The soul is deeper than the body, and all of the body's likes and dislikes mean nothing whatsoever to the soul. The soul craves for none of these things the body strains itself to get. But when we ignore the soul's desires, they come out twisted. The desire for love turns into uncontrollable lust. The desire for harmony turns into the need to control others. The desire to rise above the constraints of the world and soar in the realms of spirit gets turned into fear of the unknown, and the reluctance to engage with life. The body merely acts out the thwarted desires of the soul in the only way it knows how. Its ways are dictated by the need to survive, the need to take what it needs from the immediate environment, and the absolute necessity to dominate those with whom it must compete. The soul cares nothing about these things. The soul wants to give. It wants to connect with God and with other souls. If we stifle the soul's desires, if we ignore them and fall into the trap of believing that the earthly experience is the only reality and play only by its rules and not listen to the higher calling of our soul, then we enter into a death spiral that grows tighter and tighter until we can no longer breathe, and the fondest hopes of our heart begin to languish and slip into a dreamless sleep, waiting for another life where it might try again. The answer is not to starve the body by forcing it to give up these things. This has never been a workable strategy. As the French advertising guru Clotaire Appel once put it, the spinal cord always wins. No, the body must be turned by degree, won over by love and consistent training, the same as you would train a horse. Try to coerce a horse to behave, and you will either cause it to rebel or you will break its spirit. Either way, it will be of no use to you and will only cause you trouble. A horse is most valuable when it is allowed to be a horse. Horses love to run. Make it pull a plow all day or endlessly plod in front of a carriage, and you will blow out the fire in its heart. Your body is the same. If all you do is work, if all you do is think mundane thoughts, if all you do is relentlessly try to force the world to conform to your ideas of right and wrong, then you will extinguish the fires of the spirit in your soul. Where is the joy in your life? What is your life's upward trajectory? For what would you be willing to die, and to do so gladly? If you direct your attention to these inward qualities that make up the character of your soul, they will stream downward into your body, and by degrees refine its senses and sensibilities. The body will become the vehicle it was meant to be, and will cease being the unruly, rebellious child you have made of it. Far from being the straitjacket that most people believe vows to be, they are windows newly installed in the roof of our mind, windows that let the sunlight and fresh air into our daily experience. The vows are not there to make us feel bad when we do something wrong, but to continually pour in what is beautiful and right. They are the openings through which the contents of our higher mind can flow. How? By mirroring those divine thoughts and putting them into human terms. To be humble is not to grovel, but to make possible the experience of awe. It is that is our soul's desire, to perceive the face of God. A note about divine guidance. We want divine guidance, but we don't want to open up to just anyone. Just because we're able to get into a transcendent state of mind doesn't necessarily mean that we are communing with God. There are many levels of consciousness in the universal mind, and not all of them are reliable sources of truth. Some are misleading, some are irrelevant to our earthly life, and some are parasitic and should be avoided. How are we to know the difference? How can we be sure that we are connecting with God and not some out-of-body, earthbound spirit? How can we be sure that the still small voice we hear in meditation is in our own mind spewing out unresolved subconscious wishes or opinions? These are important questions. Instinctively, we know there are real risks involved in opening ourselves up to higher guidance. It makes us cautious, and rightfully so. We have all seen people who, after flinging open the gates of their subconscious, are now wearing white jackets, the sleeves of which are tied behind their backs. This is why devotion is an important part of our spiritual training and development. The heart must be oriented toward God, and the will must be conditioned to help us seek nothing less than the highest truth we are capable of conceiving. When presented with an energy or spirit of unknown origin, always tell it to stand in the light of Christ. Be firm. Refuse to listen until you are sure it passes this test. Don't worry, it won't disappear if it's legitimate. In fact, you will get a lot more of it if you can prove that you won't fall for just anything. And if you're not sure what the light of Christ is, or you can't tell if it comes when you call upon it, get down on your knees and call it down on yourself. You'll know when it happens, because you will feel it. You will feel the Christ force clear the field around you and surround you with peace. Humility and honesty. Another requisite component of the aspect of humility is honesty. And the person with whom we must be most honest is ourselves. Our lives are plagued by mistakes. We make them all the time. We want God to tell us what to do. After all, God is all-knowing and all-wise, right? If we knew what God knows, we would never again make a mistake. Why then is it so hard to get guidance from God? Why do some people get answers while others wander in the dark? What do they know that makes it so easy? If only we could tap into that. Perhaps the problem is in the way we approach God. In mock humility, we pretend that we don't want anything, as though we want God to tell us what to want. The truth is that we already know what we want, but we are afraid to admit it, even to ourselves. And when we do finally admit it, we turn it into shame. This is like trying to drive with the brakes on. Lots of heat, no progress. You cannot be a phony with God. You cannot pretend that you don't want something when you do. If you do pretend, you're only suppressing your desire and nothing gets resolved. And yet this is exactly what Jesus promises us in the Bible. He said to ask for whatever we want and that God will give it to us, no questions asked. And ask, it will be given to you. Ask and it will be given to you. Seek and you will find. Knock and it will be open to you. No mixed messages here. And he didn't say that you had to be good enough, that you had to deserve God's help. He said nothing about that at all. God is not someone with whom you have to plead or bargain. God gives to whoever asks, whoever. So why is it so hard? One way to understand how God works is to understand how you work. If you want to know why God answers the prayers of some people and not others, observe what you yourself do when people ask you for things. What makes you want to give to one person and not to another? The main reason, I think you'll find, is how clearly the person knows what he or she wants. The second reason is how directly do they ask. The man or woman standing on the street corner with the cardboard sign is far more likely to get a handout if they look you in the eye and ask for your help. There has to be a connection in order to motivate you to give. And while we do not want to approach God like a beggar, we can learn a lot about how asking works, why some requests get a response and others do not. Humility and the will of God. According to conventional wisdom, humility is putting God's will ahead of our own. This is a profound misunderstanding because there is no such thing as two separate wills. There's only one will, God's. It is only then that an opposition between them is possible. The reason we believe in two separate wills is that we allow our sense of self to compete with what needs to be done. We allow our considerations to get in the way, such as how we will look, what others will think of us, or whether there will be risks to our well-being. We exist in a living system wherein everything is connected in a constantly changing relationship with everything else. In the midst of constant change, the system tries to right itself moment by moment. And while the system is spiritually conscious and alive, it maintains its equilibrium automatically, just like the human body, and it does so without considerations. Therein lies the difference between it and us. We are always taking into consideration how the change is going to affect our sense of self, whether it will reinforce it or undermine its current status. Our sense of self is based upon the belief that we are a separate entity within the system, as though we were independent from the dynamic interplay of balance and change. Since we are biased toward the preservation of our sense of self, change appears as a threat, so we tend to resist it, opting instead for the safety of what is already known. As a coping mechanism, resisting change while living in a constantly changing system is unsustainable. But if we are stubborn enough, we can hold out for quite a long time until the imbalance becomes so great that coming back into balance can bring with it a certain amount of violence. Animals generally have no problem in adapting to changes in the system because they do not have a sense of self that separates them from the whole. Even if the changes bring about their demise, there is no problem because they do not see themselves as living outside the system. The system is their home. We, on the other hand, do not feel that we belong here. The center of our lives is the mind, and that enables us to not only manipulate the system, but to do so in ways that allow us to perpetuate our sense of self. We have the capability to establish ourselves as an independent agency within a system that cannot conceive of independence. This is an extremely dangerous situation, but at the same time, it is an extraordinary opportunity for self-discovery and exploration. The danger is not only that we can disrupt the system, making it inhospitable to our very existence, but that it can lead us to imagine that we are immune to the consequences of our choices. This is by far the greater danger. It leads to the philosophy that if something can be done, it should be done. It divorces knowledge from wisdom, leading to most of the problems we face today. The word for this dangerous mindset is hubris, excessive pride or arrogance, the very opposite of humility. However, if we had no pride, if we had no sense of self that enabled us to see ourselves as not of this world, we would be the same as the animals, just another species of nature. We would have no ability to see the system objectively or manipulate it to our advantage. It's not that our choices would be limited, it's that we would have no choice whatsoever. We would only be able to do what the system allows us to do within the parameters of its own rules. There would be no creativity, no imagination, and no adaptability, except for a simple response to the changes in the environment. We would have no ability to transcend our environment or to rise above that which nature has determined for us to be, simply a part of itself in its unself-conscious automatism. Clearly, surrendering to nature brings with it a profound sense of peace and contentment. Animals are entirely unconflicted about their place in the system. We, on the other hand, are deeply conflicted about our role here. We vacillate between wanting to go back to nature and boldly go where no one has gone before. We are cursed with the need to explore, the need to invent, the need to create. We are fascinated by the new, the different, the strange. We want to test ourselves, to explore our capabilities, to grow beyond our place in the system. We see the world as though it were a tomb from which we must resurrect. We can no more ignore this about ourselves than we can ignore the basic needs of our animal nature. In fact, we are often torn between these two sets of needs, which are irrefutably at odds with each other. The one set is based entirely on survival, the other on the need to transcend. The one seeks the comfort and security of the known world, the other the forbidden territory of the mythological North. The one seeks its identity in the group, the other in an unnamed calling that is deeply individual. Denying the second set of needs is tantamount to spiritual death. It leads to neuroses and physical disease. Our lifespans are not so much increased by advances in medicine as they are by expanding our horizons. The more we can envision the possible, the more fervently we want to live. If we believe that our personal will is fundamentally different from God's will, we will always be trying to either fix it or to do away with it altogether. We would believe that there is nothing divine in us at all, that we were never created in God's image, that we are not a creator, and that we have no say about what happens in our lives. We would be like the animals, natural, but unable to transcend nature. When we read in Genesis that God gave man dominion over the earth and all its creatures, it means that the element of mind sets human beings apart from nature, freeing us from the blind machinations of the law of cause and effect. Through mind, we can initiate new causes and thereby chart our own course in our evolutionary path, albeit within the parameters of what we are able to conceive. This path, as mentioned before, is both extremely dangerous and an extraordinary opportunity. It is dangerous because of hubris, our unwillingness to listen to the voice of wisdom, following instead the imaginings of our ambitious sense of self. It is an opportunity because we get to exercise our God-given creativity in ways we can't even envision. The possibilities for expression and self-knowing are without limit. Here we have to come to grips with our fallibility, our tendency to make mistakes. We have to be able to be at peace with this if we are to progress further in our search for truth. Let us imagine that eating the fruit of the tree of knowledge of good and evil was actually part of the overall plan for the human project, and that having to find our own way in the world was an integral part of our evolution. No mistake, no original sin. After all, if God created us as free agents, disobedience would be part of the program, an absolutely necessary part. Since unpredictability is an essential ingredient of our creativity. Why else would God have created humanity if not to explore the full range of creativity inherent in the creation? We are God's creative agents in the world. The tools God gave us with which to create are the word of power and the law. The word of power is what makes it possible for us to speak the creation into being. And while our actual vocalizations have a certain amount of creative power, it is the roots of speech, namely thought, that has the real power to shape our experience in the world. It is our ability to think that has produced all that makes us uniquely human, for good or ill. And again, without the possibility for error, there can be no creativity. Risk, or daring, is a fundamental part of the creative process. To will, to dare, to do, to be silent. The law is just another name for prayer, not the God, please give me kind of prayer, but the God, I accept this kind. This is the kind of prayer that Jesus taught when he said, whatsoever you ask in prayer, believing, will be granted to you. If we really believe this, our knowing is complete. We have perfect confidence in our ability to call into manifestation whatever we want. The fact that we can also create problems for ourselves simply reiterates the fundamental role of the possibility for error in the creative process. So, entertaining this idea that God created us specifically to leave paradise and explore the creative potentials of this world, giving us the tools of creation that we would need in order to function as God functions, then the will of God could only be one thing: that we be creative, that we grow and develop the seeds of possibility hardwired into us from the beginning. To think that God wants to direct our every move is the height of egotism. It is also a denial of our own God-given divinity, which more than anything else is what makes us human. Believing that God wants to manipulate us the way a puppeteer pulls the strings of a marionette is to deny the very purpose of our existence, namely to learn and to evolve, to reveal the nascent God within us, to become sons and daughters of the Most High. It is a crushing blow to the ego to realize that God does not particularly care what we do with our lives, what job we have, what country we live in, what religion we belong to. God does not care about these things. God only cares that we use the tools that we were given and that we use them creatively. This means that we are to explore and develop the inherent potential of all things, especially ourselves. And we are to do this in such a way that does not disrupt the systems of the world. To do so would be to defeat the purpose of the entire project, to raise the earth and ourselves to its highest level of expression. Dominion over the earth does not give us the right to kill it. The only definitive thing we can say about God's will is that God wants us to use the tools we've been given to create the world we want to live in. That's all. There is no divine plan that specifies what the world should look like, what kind of governments we should have, what kind of religion everyone should follow. None of that. The only requirement is that we leave the place in better shape than we found it. And here's the real kicker. God does not know what the final product will be. If God had known what the creative potential in human beings was going to deliver, there would have been no reason to create us. Unpredictability is the cornerstone of the creative act. It is, one might say, the whole point. Evidently, God likes a surprise as much as anyone. If you can set aside what you already know about humility and look at it from this angle, you will see the enormous opportunity that God has made available to us for growth and spiritual development. There is nothing else like it. It is awe-inspiring. It takes real humility to take up the challenge God has given us, to accept our innate divinity, and to use it to explore and develop the potential greatness of the world. In the next video, I will read Chapter 4, The Vow of Poverty and the Principle of Non-Attachment. See you then.